All information is current as of this patch. In this video I will be covering both of the newest support heroes in Lifeweaver and Illari, so if there's one you prefer to see, here are the timestamps for those heroes. So, you want to learn Lifeweaver, eh? What's wrong with you? Like, seriously, is everything okay? You know there are so many better things for you to do, right? Like, go outside to touch grass, maybe? See, I'm doing it right now, like, it's much better. Which is what I would be saying if Lifeweaver was still how he was when he first released alongside Overwatch 2 Season 4. You know, the Galactic Opera one, that might as well have just been a Star Wars crossover. But anyway, yeah, when Weaver hit the live servers, he was absolute dog water. No ifs, ands, or buts. Just straight up useless, honestly. Well, maybe useless wouldn't be fair to say, but it was kind of like the devs forgot how to do the gameplay balancing, and accidentally flipped the balancing switch to underpowered instead of the typical overpowered we tend to see with new heroes, like with the other hero we'll be seeing later. I'm jumping in a lot here, but as of the beginning of Season 6, Lifeweaver is in a much better place than he was originally. And in my opinion, at least, I think he's actually really good now. Lifeweaver getting balance changes so much is part of why I'm only just now covering him in this mini-series, along with the fact I knew ahead of time that the next hero after would be another support, so I thought doing two in one go would be a good idea, so yeah. But the past has been written for us to look back on long enough, so let's just look to the future and allow me to teach you how to play Hero 37 Lifeweaver. Over 4 months later, oh well, on with the show. So to start, I said in my introducing Lifeweaver video that Weaver felt more like a utility support, rather than one that has a focus on healing. I still kind of hold that opinion now because of what his kit consists of and how it can be used, but with the numerous buffs he's had to his Prime Fire, Healing Blossom, his ability 3, Life Grip, and his ultimate ability, Tree of Life, he can now solidly serve two roles in utility and healing. I'll explain more about what I mean by utility as we go along. As just mentioned, Healing Blossom is Weaver's primary fire, and it is a burst projectile based form of healing that has an element of tracking to it, able to follow allies behind objects and walls, either around or over them, along with a damn good max tracking range of 30 meters to boot. Unlike Animal Mercy's primary method of healing, there's a minimum and maximum amount of healing that Healing Blossom can do at a time, ranging from 10 to 75, depending on how long you hold it for before letting go, but it takes 1 second to reach full charge. Reaching max charge doesn't mean Weaver instantly lets go of the Blossom. He can hold onto it for longer, but after another second, Weaver will lose around 25% of his maximum move speed, so maybe don't hold it until Overwatch 3, just a word of advice. Healing Blossom has 20 ammo to play with, so assuming you get through all 20 and hold until max charge, you would have done 1500 healing, which, again, assuming you release instantly upon the full charge, will take about 20 seconds, which when compared to Mercy's primary rate of healing of 55 per second over the same amount of time, totaling 1100, is really good, but it is less when compared to Anna's primary healing rate of 70 per 0.6 seconds, totaling 2333.333 reoccurring over 20 seconds. Numbers. Yes, of course, that 1500 total healing over 20 seconds is dependent on your reaction time, I guess, but even if you don't really set the max charge each time, as long as you aren't just spamming the Blossoms, you should still be doing decent enough healing to help your teammates. Though I'd recommend primarily focusing your DPS instead of heal botting tanks due to the consistency of the healing you'd have to maintain otherwise. One thing to add about Healing Blossom quickly, its charge time is increased by 50% in Kiriko's ultimate ability, Kitsune Rush. I clarified this because Kitsune Rush boosts firing rate, and charging rate is technically different, but not actually. It's weird, but honestly, just don't worry about it. You might be wondering, does Lifeweaver have any way of defending himself? Well yes, you impatient scum, he does. He has a few, actually. One's better than your average Zenyatta, but that's not hard as sad as it is to admit as a former Zen main. First on that list is Weaver's secondary fire, Form Volley. Volley is a projectile-based attack. It has an ammo count of 80 and fires 11 thorns per second, with each individual thorn doing 6 damage. Sounds measly, I know, but it takes about 7.27 seconds to go for all 80 thorns. So if you land every shot, then by the end of it, you would have done around 480 damage, give or take. That calculation was awkward because that 7.27 seconds isn't just a solid 7.27. It's this, so yeah. Form Volley does headshot damage. Headshots have a 2 times damage multiplier, and shares a reload time with Healing Blossom at 1.5 seconds. But they will automatically reload after 2.5 seconds of being on the other fire. This is technically a unique property of Lifeweaver's primary and secondary fire, don't ask me for clarification. Second on that list of ways of defending himself is his petal platform. When used, the platform has 400 health and will raise up around 9 meters as soon as anyone steps on it, friend or foe, but not immediately, instead having a very short delay. Once activated, it will last for 10 seconds. However, if it's not stepped on, the platform will just stay in place forever, unless broken. You cancel the ability, which breaks the flower, or you place another one after a 12-second cooldown. This is a great way of getting to higher ground or escaping a precarious situation, thanks to its quick activation time and ease of use. Not to mention, it can also get your allies out of trouble, say, if they're trapped in the various ultimates, like Orys's Terror Surge, for example. However, I wouldn't say it's as reliable as Weaver's Life Grip ability, but we'll get to that. Try not to panic, place the platform though, because if there's not enough space above where it's placed, you will either not get the maximum height or it will just not raise at all, due to how the platform's hit detection works. So how? Treat the circumference of the flower as a square and try to keep it at least a tiny amount of distance away from walls or other objects to avoid it getting stuck. You can also super jump if you time a jump when the platform reaches its apex. Pale Platform makes for a really fun combo with Rejuvenating Dash actually. And on that note, Rejuvenating Dash is a movement ability where you swiftly move in the direction you're already moving for a very short 6.15 meters, also healing 50 health upon use. In contrast to Genji's Swift Strike ability, that is actually a really difficult thing to say quickly. Rejuvenating Dash can only be used horizontally, so it's more comparable to Hanzo's lunge ability, just without the very slight vertical movement. As just stated, along with platform, this is super fun to take advantage of. Just launch yourself into the air with the super jump from the platform and dash straight after for microdoses of adrenaline. It's genuinely that fun to do while also being a great way of getting out of predicaments. And finally, for Weaver's main abilities, Life Grip. I said this was more reliable for rescuing your allies than the Pelt platform, and I meant that. Life Grip will pull a single teammate to where you are, granting them brief invincibility and healing 50 health, with a max range of 30 meters, the same as Weaver's primary fire, Healing Blossom, for targeting. It can't be understated that Life Grip is one of the best abilities for preventing a teammate's death, no matter if they've fallen off an edge, are affected by some slowing ability, or are about to succumb to an enemy's ultimate. You'd be surprised how valuable this can be. Sigma's Gravity Flux, Zyre's Gremlin Surge, Reinhardt's Charge, and Roanoke's Chain can be prevented by Life Grip and teammates out of them, but again, only on the one target. You can also pull teammates onto your Petal platform, so if they've been displaced by the enemy team and are in danger, take advantage of the 30 meter range and pull them up there. And while it may be fun to pull teammates out of trouble, it is otherwise a disruption to them. So maybe don't be toxic and Life Grip allies at full health that will benefit from being up close. And given its 16-second long cooldown, try to use it sparingly. Situational Judgment is your friend with this ability. The last thing to note about Life Grip is that it doesn't get rid of negative effects like Anti-Heal inflicted by Anna's Byronade or Hack inflicted by Sombra's Hack, though it does briefly pause the bleeding effect inflicted by Jungle Queen until the animation of Life Grip ends. And last but not least for Lifeweaver, here's also ability, Tree of Life. Upon use, a sapling will appear in Weaver's hands where you can then decide where to place the tree. Once cast by an ally, or yourself, you'll hear, and when an enemy casts it, you'll hear. The Tree of Life will have 1200 health and will provide an immediate 150 healing and an extra 75 per pulse, occurring once every 1.75 seconds, lasting 15 seconds, or 8 bursts of healing in a 12 meter area of effect. Don't question the math, by the way, the pulse starts after 1 second of tree being placed. It's weird, just don't worry about it. If any of your team, including yourself, are already at max health when you place the tree will trigger something called overhealing, where 50% of heals received via the tree will convert into overhealth, represented by the green health bars, with up to 100 extra overhealth to be gained from it. Overhealth isn't permanent though, as it will start to decay once the tree disappears. It also cut the enemy's gained ult charge from dealing damage by 50%, so yeah, pretty handy. This isn't something exclusive to Weaver though, as other hero abilities can also grant overhealth, like this year's Soundwave Ultimate, to name another support. Overall though, it's well worth putting down in the midst of a teamfight. It should also be mentioned that Tree of Life is generally great at blocking some enemy ultimates like Reaper's Death Blossom or even Kiriko's Kitsune Rush. It can block the path of directional ults like Jungle Queen's Rampage and Demon's Self-Destruct, or even just cut off ultimates like Ramacha's Annihilation. As a Ramacha connoisseur, I've had that happen to me a few times and it's not fun to have that happen to you. One last thing to know about Tree of Life, enemy shields will not cut off the healing from the tree, so it acts similar to Orys's Terror Surge in that sense, where so long as you're in its radius, you're done for. Well, safe in the tree's case. You know what, never mind. With everything in account, although it's taken some time for Lifeweaver to get to the point he is now, he's a solid enough peer who, while he still has some flaws, namely when it comes to actual combat, only relying on his form volume for damage, which, while decent, isn't overly reliable, compared to Zenya's Orbs of Destruction anyway. his healing capabilities more than make up for it. But who knows, maybe I've just given into the Stockholm Syndrome having played Lifeweaver more than the average anyone. I even have both of his achievements. I'm basically a pro Lifeweaver at this point. Illari is straight up insane. I'm right out of the gate with that one, I'm aware, but I'm only speaking facts. But I suppose I'm going to have to clarify what I mean by that, huh? Illari went live at the same time as Overwatch 2 Season 6, and unlike how Lifeweaver was at the start of Season 4, I think it might be safe to say that Illari's kind of overpowered. She's basically a damage hero disguised as a support one. In fact, newer players may not remember, but back in the day, Symmetra used to be a support hero, but pretty much only by definition alone, before she was a low-ranked feared god that she is now in damage, and you know, I can maybe see the same happening to Illari in the future, given how, well, she's basically a DPS hero, no two ways about it. But that's enough of my ramblings and speculation, let's pin down why she's so good exactly. The Peruvian Inti warrior wields the solo rifle and it has a primary fire and a secondary fire. For the primary fire first, it has an ammo count of 14 and a reload time of 2 seconds. It's a hit scan type of fire and it can do between 25 and 75 damage per shot, depending on the amount of charge you fire at, which automatically increases over a period of time, with it taking about a second to reach full charge. The solo rifle's shots have a fall-off range, however, between 30 and 50 meters, with most damage numbers going as low as 7.5 to 22.5 damage per shot if the target falls within that range. So despite the hit scan nature of her weapon, you can't exactly cross-map an enemy Widowmaker. But hell, she can't cross-map you anymore anyway, so there's nothing to worry about, I guess. If your target is closer to you than 30 meters though, you're about to have a good time, because you can deal headshot damage. So with a 2 times damage multiplier that get you headshots grant, minimum charge you're doing 50 damage, and maximum charge you're doing 150 damage per shot. So you can 2-tap the majority of heroes, and you can 1-tap a Tracer. She's much like Kiriko in a sense, with high damage output, but one that will maybe take a bit of aim training to get down. The primary firing rate of the solo rifle is 1 shot per second when firing at max charge, or 1.7 shots per second when firing at minimum charge, and each shot requires pinpoint accuracy, so much like Sojourn's ultimate fire on her railgun, or the just mentioned Kiriko and her kunais. Once again, mentioning Kiriko, the charge rate of the solo rifle is increased by 50% in her Kitsune Rush. What a helpful, sharp-tongued ball of sunshine she is. As for Illari's secondary fire on the solo rifle, or rather the alternate fire, it is a beam of healing that heals 120 health per second but only lasts about 3 seconds before having to recharge. Similar to Moira's bionic healing in that sense, but it takes about 3.36 seconds for the bar to refill when it's been fully depleted, and also requires pinpoint accuracy, which is an odd one, but hey, whatever. Even with a rather punishing 3.3 second cooldown, you're still healing 360 health in that time, so it's nothing to scoff at really. It does come with an interesting caveat though. If you have fired a fully charged shot in the primary fire beforehand and then switch to the alt fire to heal an ally up real quick, the primary fire's charge will pause until you stop using the beam. On the other hand though, using your primary fire will not pause the beam recharge, so if you run out of heals you can just get back to firing for a short time and you'll be able to heal again soon enough. But wait, what if there's just too much going on around you while you wait for the beam to recharge and your primary fire just isn't enough to tear through the tank in front of you? Well, Illari has something for that, an ability that creates space. Outburst. Outburst is a directional move ability that launches you in the direction you're moving and can also knock back enemies and also deals 10 damage. For some reason it's such a measly number, but whatever. You can hold the input to charge the outburst, which will increase your jump height, but will sacrifice a little travel distance. With charge, you will launch about 7 meters in the air and will travel about 16.74 meters if you chose to input a direction. Without charge, your vertical height will only be about 3 meters, but your travel distance will somehow be higher at 18.4 meters a second. I don't quite understand why this is the case, and with the test I was doing on flat terrain, the most I could get out the horizontal travel distance was between 12 and 14 meters, so information is still kind of sparse. There's always new things to learn. As you can gather, Outburst is a decent form of maneuverability, allowing you to easily create some space or to get to higher ground, though in some cases you might have to use another object as a stepping stool to get to a certain high ground. And although the knockback is great, Tank's passive ability reduces knockback from abilities, and that also applies here, so just thought I'd warn you. A fun use of an Outburst would be to use it on enemies near a ledge for those sweet environmental kills. Onto Illari's second form of healing, which is actually her only other form, the Healing Pylon. This is an arcing projectile that will stick to most surfaces and walls, having 75 health and 75 shields, and will provide around 50 healing per second, prioritising the lowest health teammate around it. Pylon has a cooldown of 8 seconds, but that duration will extend to 12 seconds if it's destroyed. So you're encouraged to not just keep the pylon in one place forever, mostly because of how easy it can just be to spot. due to its targeting beam, similar to Symmetra's sentry turrets. Otherwise, the pylon will just stay in place, or until another pylon has been deployed, destroying the last one. And to clarify what I meant by the pylon sticking to most surfaces, I did an instance in my Illari Day 1 stream where I threw it on a wall on Junkertown and immediately destroyed itself somehow. But other than that, it can be stuck to the push robot, which is incredibly saddening, I will not lie. On the contrary, you can put it on the payload and even on those floating platforms in the final part of Route 66, so get creative with its placement, but be sure to keep it out of the enemy's direct sight. And finally for Illari's abilities, her ultimate, Captive Sun, which is an awesome name, I'm not gonna lie. When cast by an ally, and yourself, you'll hear, and when cast by an enemy, you'll hear, Captive Sun has Illari fly up into the sky where you can freely control her, and then launch a projectile moving at about 32.5 meters a second. That will slow hit enemies for 7 seconds, and then explodes, doing huge damage after enough has been taken. The ball eventually will do 5 damage for a direct hit, and 50 for splash damage, with the ability to hit multiple enemies at once, and once about 90 damage has been accumulated, the sun will then explode, doing 120 damage and can trigger a chain reaction if the explosion is next to other enemies who have been affected. It is quite the ultimate, able to pick off a group at once, and with the choice to not fire immediately but wait out the 5.2 second duration to then automatically fire, it gives you a nice sense of freedom. To note, the projectile actually has piercing capabilities, so it can pass through barriers and enemies, so line them up and knock them down. So yeah, you can see what I mean when I said Illari was just a damage character disguised as a support, but you know, I don't see that as a bad thing. Think about other supports like Zenyatta or Kyoko. Two other characters that can dish out heavy damage but pretty much need to be pinpoint accurate with their shots. Zenyatta can place a Discord Orb on an opponent and then release a fully charged burst shot to annihilate them, and even without it, he can still destroy most tanks easily. And Kyoko gets a 3 times damage headshot multiplier for her kunai, so yeah, that goes for that name. Compared to those two, Illari has a much slower firing rate and no bonus incentive to do damage, unless she's just used Captive Sun, and sure. For Zenyatta and Kyoko, the damage output is dependent on getting headshots with their said pinpoint accuracy, but guess what? That applies to Illari too. If anything, they're just all in the same boat, so I guess switch all 3 of them over to damage because we support players just aren't allowed to have fun, it seems. You guys got Sergeant, remember? That should be enough, alright? All that aside, Illari's a super fun hero to play and a welcome new addition, even if I feel like the new character should have been Aurora, you know, the one who's basically the centerpiece of the Genesis animated series. Yeah, her. Nevertheless, Illari's still awesome. 2 pretty damn solid support heroes in their own right, both fitting into a particular niche. But how about some general advice, like what team comps they work well with? Well, to start, I guess, funny enough, they actually work well with each other. Illari makes up for the kind of lacking combat capabilities of Lifeweaver with aspects like her good damage providing, good reliability, allowing Weaver to focus a little more on healing, and Weaver makes up for Illari's kind of lackluster healing capabilities with a surprisingly good rate of healing with healing blossoms, and the ever reliable tree of life that can be built up pretty easily through consistent healing. Not to mention, with Weaver's ability to just pull opponents out of fights if they're suffering, and how Illari will most likely be fighting up front with everyone if her pylon gets destroyed, and healing becomes too slow, Weaver can safely play from a distance and pull Illari back for a few seconds and put the tree of life in the meantime. It's almost like they only created Illari as another way of making Lifeweaver good because of how much she enables him. However, you don't have to run them side by side. They can work alongside other supports, Weaver working well with Moira, Illari working well with Baptiste, or how Kyoko can work well with either of them. Team synergy is still a work in progress, but that's what I've discovered / can put together so far. Matchup wise, we'll start with Lifeweaver. Weaver's life grip can actually change the flow of a battle if used right, by saving your most important teammate from a devastating ult, many of which include tank or DPS one. So play him into tanks like Sigma or Zarya, and DPS like Bastion or Junkrat. Avoid playing into tanks like D.Va and Winston though, not only because of their ability to easily dive backlines where Weaver is typically played best, but also because Winston's barrier can completely negate the healing blossoms, and D.Va's high damage output, close up and ability to pursue make it difficult for Weaver to escape. Also avoid playing into the usual suspects like Sombras or Anas, due to the hack cutting off your ability to escape for a couple seconds and Bionage just preventing your healing entirely for a few seconds. Now for Illari. Her potentially high damage output and hit scan type of fight is really useful for typically airborne targets like Echo or Farah, not to mention for Mercy as well, and thanks to the range of the solo rifle before fall off kicks in, you can outrange a number of other heroes easily, like playing it safe against Reaper and Symmetra, or ones like Tracer who you can easily 2-tap, or even 1-tap if you can hit a walnut-sized head hitbox. This may seem like I'm about to repeat myself, but avoid playing into heroes like D.Va and Sombra. D.Va because she can just put up the defense matrix to block off your shots and protect the team, and she can also easily catch the projectile shot from Captain's Sun, due to how slow moving it is and how quickly matrix can be charged. Sombra I don't really need to explain, but she can obviously prevent your escape options and even disable the healing pylon temporarily, or either hack or EMP you out with the Captain's Sun, so if you absolutely have to, just be careful. It's also best not to play into sniper characters like Ashe, Hunter or Widowmaker, because of how they can easily outrange your shots and how 4-off damage will be an even worse enemy than them in that situation. Okay, well that should do it for both Lifeweaver and Illari. I'm sure I've said this before, but although I'm not a top 500 pro Overwatch player or anything, I think it's important to give a different perspective on these types of things, and it's just something I enjoy doing. After all, the world could always use more heroes.